Welcome to the Solopreneur Academy Podcast. This is a podcast for entrepreneurs who want to make more impact and income in less time. I'm your host, Megan, and throughout each episode, you'll learn how to create the lifestyle and legacy you want as you grow. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Solopreneur Academy Podcast. Today, I'm going to be starting a series on motherhood and maternity leave and pivots you can make within your business. So today kicks it off with how to pivot your business when you find out you are pregnant. Now, this is going to be one of the four things that are in this series. I'm also going to be referring back to an episode that I did on maternity leave. That was episode, let me double check. I believe it was 109. 109. So 109, I talked about how to take maternity leave, and I'm going to be referring to that one or extended leave as a solopreneur. So if I refer back to that one, make sure you listen to it for a full in-depth explanation for some of the concepts I'm going to be teaching here. But I still feel like this required a separate, and what a fun start to this maternity motherhood series that I'm going to be doing, because I think that this requires some separate planning. So first and foremost, I'm going to be talking about I think that the theme of this entire podcast is going to be about adaptability and about being transparent. Adaptability and transparency. I think that those two concepts are going to be the things that are going to be extremely beneficial when you think about pivoting your business when you are pregnant. So first and foremost, I'm going to go about and talk to you about how to pivot the way that you are framing yourself as a CEO when you find out that you're pregnant. Then I'm going to talk to you about preparing yourself in the back end of your business when you find out you're pregnant. And then I'm going to talk about preparing and pivoting your business in the front end of your business when you find out you're pregnant. So first and foremost, as a solopreneur, the reason why I did the entire coaching psychology of business series prior to this was we know that as a solopreneur, you are the driver of your business. That is the best thing ever, and it can also mean that you can be the master of your own disaster. You are truly responsible for creating the results within your business. So we got to start out talking about this topic by focusing on the ways that we can prepare you mentally, emotionally, and physically when you find out that you're pregnant. Now, some people getting pregnant is an expected thing. And for other people, finding out that you're pregnant is an unexpected thing. For Rob and I, we were actually in between rounds of doing IVF, and we were anticipating having a child we were anticipating going through IVF in 2027 and then actually delivering our baby in 2028. We got pregnant in 2025 and are delivering in 2026. So for us, 2 years ahead of time, this beautiful miracle baby was a wonderful miracle and an unexpected twist in our lives. So in order for me to pivot and really think about getting myself on board with my business, there was a part of me that really needed to make peace with the new change that I was experiencing. And this can be helpful for anybody going through an expected or unexpected change in your life. I'm just going to use the circumstance of pregnancy to kind of like give you context. And I think this will be helpful for you all too. So if you're experiencing a pregnancy that is unexpected, what you want to do is create a lot of safety for yourself and your business with this unexpected change in plans. Now, human beings don't love change. I don't know if you knew this, but we are not always huge fans of change. A lot of times there can be a lot of resistance to change within your business and within your life. So what you want to do is you want to create a new neural loop of safety and sufficiency within your business and get yourself on board with the change in your life that is coming. So for me, I was thinking about like what in my vision for my business and life, the reason why we were waiting so long is we wanted to buy a house with plenty of time to save up for it. We also wanted to be able to like my goal was to make 1 million before I had the baby. Now, for me, how cool is it if you listen to the last week's podcast? I talked a lot about how I sold myself on niching down to moms as it just makes sense for me as I scale to 1 million and multiple millions. And for me, with scale to 1 million in 1 year, I've made 1 million in five, but just to clarify. So within my business, I was like, how awesome is it that I now get to speak? Gotten the advice to niche down to moms before I was pregnant. And now I get to speak to the realities of motherhood, and I will be giving you way more tips beyond this mom series as well about things that I'm doing and then learning with my newborn. But for me, I needed to understand how to. I was like, this is perfect. Now I actually get to speak to the physical reality of being circumstantially being a mom. Instead of, for me, I was speaking a lot of times in the past to moms because 89% of my clients are parents. So now I was like, great, this just gets me to speak about it sooner. And what I've been by selling yourself and creating a new neural pathway that creates safety, certainty, and of course, excitement about this new situation is you want to be able to identify positive thoughts quickly. So you want to be thinking in to mentally prepare yourself for motherhood and for the journey of pregnancy. You want to be selling yourself on all the ways that this is going to work for you and create the results you want. Whether this is expected or unexpected, I think this is very helpful, but mostly for people who are experiencing an unexpected situation and, of course, pregnancy, you want to be selling yourself on all the reasons why this is going to make your business better, stronger, and faster, and why you're going to be a better CEO. All those reasons you want to be coming up and brainstorming on the daily to get your brain on board with this change. The other thing that you want to do is you want to be able to do what I like to call strategies with obstacles and strategies. So instead of your brain will go in loops if it has an open loop of a problem. It will fixate on that based on negativity. Because if you think about it, as human brains have evolved, if we were just optimistic all the time and we heard a rustle in the bushes and we were like, oh, it's probably just a bunny, and it was a tiger, we were wiped out by natural selection. So if you are a being existing on the planet now, you have a highly negative, anxious, problem focused brain. Congratulations. It's part of being a human. And you need to understand that that anxious, problem seeking, negative version of your brain is not going to be the most efficient you need to be as a solopreneur, as to run your business to be successful in any regard. But in general, we have to evolve past that primitive negative programming. And it takes 5 positive thoughts to replace a negative thought. So that's why you want to find all the ways that it's working for you unprompted. And I want you to do a brain dump. Again, whether it's expected or unexpected, but I think this is especially important if it is an unexpected situation, that you find all the reasons why it's going to be working for you to be pregnant in this situation. The next thing that you want to do is you want to be able to think about all of the foreseeable obstacles within your mindset and within physical, tangible things that you could possibly fathom. And it's going to show your brain, if you can think about all the obstacles, then think about strategies to solve them, you are going to do what's called strategic pessimism. That means that you are going to be able to show your brain here are all the issues that I could foresee happening, and here are all of my solutions and strategies to make it happen. That helps you go from being a problem focused employee a lot of the time to a solution seeking CEO. You want to be able to identify, okay, here are all the issues that I could foresee coming, and do it from an objective, logical lens. again, data versus drama. I had a podcast about that in 118, so you can think about that too. But you want to be able to be like, okay, for every problem I foresee, there could be solutions for all these things. So you want to be able to list out before we get into what the behind the scenes and the front scenes of your business look like. You want to just list out every foreseeable possible problem that could happen. And for me personally, as somebody who has endometriosis, oversharing time, I could foresee health issues with myself and with our child immediately. So for me, it does help me to be able to be like, okay, here's a problem that could happen and here's a strategy. Another reason why we were going through IVF beyond my endometriosis was actually because I am a carrier for infant hearing loss and so is Rob. So we have 1 in 4 chances for our little one is that there's a chance that there could be a hearing issue. So for me, I needed to go there with my physical and like before I even got into my business, I needed to go to some of the real obstacles that could be like health challenges. And that could be that sweet Eve, we don't know actually up until this point. We chose not to do amniotic centesis to figure out whether she would be deaf or have hearing loss in some way, shape, or form when she's born. So for me, we that's still an unknown. And in order for me to create safety to just move forward and not spiral and panic, I was like, guess what? I am a fast learner. That is a concept I hold about myself. And I've always wanted to speak another language. I don't typically. ASL, American Sign Language, is something that could be an awesome thing that I could learn how to do. I also know that the Raleigh has a school for people who are deaf and blind. And I was like, excellent. We've got a great resource right downtown. So for me, it helped me to go there instead of to fixate on a problem. It was like, okay, now we've got a solution. Check. My brain felt resolved, and then I was able to move forward to other things once I was able to check that box. So and these could be things like for me, I also was very concerned. There's with endometriosis, there is a very high chance of miscarriage. It's just a statistical fact. And I was like, okay, if we miscarry, we had the funds set aside for IVF. We could do it again. I've done it before. And we've got 5 little burritos on ice that I'm like, great. We've got a plan. We've got like a situation, which sounds very dark to some people. And I apologize if that is triggering or traumatizing for anybody who's experienced situations. But for me, I had to go there in order to create safety for myself to stabilize mentally and move forward. This is especially, again, important if you are experiencing an unexpected situation, or in our case, it was an unexpected pregnancy. And I needed to pivot myself first and create stability in my mindset in order to move forward for anything business related. So that really helped me. And you can still use that positive we could call it like a positive thought download of all the things that you're excited about, ways that it's going to help you to grow your business, and then the strategic pessimism with the obstacles and strategies. You can use that for any other situation within your business as well. But for me, that was the first step. I know that I am, again, either the master of my own disaster or the creator of my own success within my business. And I knew that I had to get me on board first. Now, if you're experiencing an expected pregnancy, you can still use these same tools. However, I think for you, when you're thinking about an expected pregnancy, the other thing that you can add on to this is all of the ways that this is going to make, again, especially if you're finding out that you're pregnant initially, you are going to be able to access those positive thoughts pretty quickly. But I also want to let you know, I have enough people who are clients of mine and friends that even though they had an expected pregnancy, they still had, as a human being that is resistant to change, because change, as human beings are um, pattern, like our brains positively respond to patterns. That's why routines are so critical for businesses and lives and all humans. But within that, if your brain is experiencing a pivot that is even expected, there still might be some recoil from experiencing maybe physical symptoms that you've never had before, just any other unexpected thoughts. So I don't want you to make that a problem. I want you to, even if this was an expected pregnancy, like you've been trying for years, I want you to know that it's normal for a human brain who is change averse, especially if this is your first child, even if it's your first child, if it's your second child, if it's your 15th child. I don't know many people who have them, but it's like within that situation, I don't want you to compound negative, like if you have any quote unquote negative thoughts about pregnancy, even if it was expected, don't make that a problem, because what happens is that also brings in an emotional level of intensity that doesn't actually serve you when you're building your business. You want to keep that emotional regulation low. Again, thinking about the polyvagal theory, if your emotions are high, you literally shut off blood flow to your prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for logical decision making. If you get elevated and put negative emotion on top of just a negative thought, you don't want to create that compounding negativity of like, it's like stressing out about being stressed. It doesn't actually make the stress go away. You want to normalize, you want to validate, you want to affirm yourself and say, hey, of course, I'm having some fears, concerns, apprehension about a change, and that's okay. I want you to learn how to really reassure yourself and be like, nothing has gone wrong here. Tell me, brain. This is what I like to do. Again, unexpected and expected pregnancies alike or circumstances. I want you to think about for you really learning you want to learn how to hack your brain again because you are a solopreneur. You are the buck grows and stops with you. So if you want to be thinking about how to make your business grow the fastest you possibly can and the best it could possibly be, you want to be able to learn how your brain reassures itself. A lot of times I co-regulate and I self-regulate. So self-regulation, including coaching, doing deep breathing techniques. I also talk to myself in a really positive way that I'm like, hey, tell me what are all these problems that you're seeing? It's okay. Nothing's gone wrong here. Let's talk through them because you probably have some valid concerns and let's reassure them. And then that's when you can put it into the strategic pessimism, obstacles, and strategies chart that it also, there's going to be a worksheet that goes along with this episode. I forgot to mention that in the show notes. So you can actually do this exercise of the strategic pessimism, obstacles, and strategies. And for me, it's like, hey, everything is fine. Let's actually list it out. Like, I want to hear all of your concerns. I want to hear everything that you're feeling about this situation. And I want to be able to reassure you and say, okay, like, let's come up with a strategy. Does that feel sufficient? Does this feel like it's a good enough plan? And then move forward from there. You can, of course, use this for the front and the back end of your business as well, but it's just good for you to be thinking about, okay, there's lots of things that I can do here that are within my control. And the more that you can take back control, the more empowered you'll feel to take on this new amazing journey that you're about to go through. So that's the first thing is you want to be able to get your brain on board, and then you want to be able to get your brain on board by coming up with a thought download of all positive things that will serve your business moving forward because of this amazing pregnancy. And you also want to be able to be like, here are some realistic obstacles and strategies to affirm yourself and again, regulate yourself to be able to move forward. So that's the first thing that you want to do. The next thing is you want to be able to be very, very flexible and you want to be able to create pivot plans. What I have learned the most through this pregnancy is that every single day, every trimester, every week has been a little bit different. And I don't say that if you are planning on getting pregnant and haven't had kids before to scare or intimidate any of you, because I feel like there's so much fear mongering that goes on. Like literally every time I talk with somebody, I'm like, oh, I'm pregnant. They're like, let me tell you my horror story. It's like really fascinating just to like watch. So what I've learned for me personally, I just find because I've been coaching for so long and I know human brains, it's just interesting to hear like that is usually like the first thing that I hear from so many people. And for me personally, I've been able to kind of like gauge that. And anytime I'm like, oh yeah, I'm pregnant. I try and like intercept it. And like, what's the best advice you got? Because typically best implies something positive and advice gets people to think beyond negative trauma experiences that they might have had with children. And so that's just like a way that I have been able to pivot like some of the unsolicited feedback that I've been getting from people, but feel free to do whatever works best for you. But just know that that's going to happen. Like people will share with you all these things. The reason why I say that with a caveat is that like physically, mentally, and emotionally, things have varied pretty drastically within my pregnancy. And you just want to be prepared for that mentally. I think that most people aren't thinking that like okay, I'm about to get pregnant. I've never, especially if you've never been pregnant before, I'm just ready for anything. I think a lot of times what happens is you are prepared to be a little bit flexible. But I think a lot of times people get a very set, as human beings, we're change averse and we love making plans. And you've got to be very flexible and able to pivot quickly when you are pregnant. Because I think that, like, especially this goes as far as birth plans, I've heard that people can get very attached to a plan. And if you get very attached to a plan, the resistance when the plan has to change can cause so much emotional drama and struggle for you that it almost creates a problem where there doesn't need to be. So what I like to do is if I know that my brain is likes routines, if I know my brain likes plans and it likes structure to create safety, what I have done is I have made multitudes of physical plans and emotional plans and pivot plans that create a lot of safety for me within my pregnancy. So for me, physically, the other thing that I had to do on the back end, especially as a solopreneur, and I'll talk about what changes you can do on the back end of your business if you have employees, but I had to be very flexible. And like for me, I would feel like I kind of figured it out for a few days and I'd be like, okay, so in the first trimester, I felt really, really sick in the morning and I felt really, really tired. And I learned that you can have currently the recommendation is 200 milligrams of caffeine. So I found these like jazzy little noon tablets and they've got 40 milligrams caffeine and electrolytes. So I've been having five of them a day. I'm very regimented with it. I also learned that there are like situations where you might need to be aware of your stomach in situations like that. So I have like Miralax to help me with those kind of situations. Oversharing abundant this episode. I also learned, and there was a medication I was taking for nausea that was helpful for me. And I wasn't able to eat like any meat at the beginning. And I was just like, okay, we're just gonna have to pivot. I still to this day have had Cheerios pretty much every day, and I'm 37 weeks now. And I have had Cheerios pretty much every morning because that's like the one thing it's been consistent. But you just have to kind of pivot. And I was very fortunate with my pregnancy where I haven't had like a ton of like severe physical symptoms. I threw up like four times, five times within this whole pregnancy. So I was very, very fortunate, but I just felt terrible. And I just had to kind of be cool with that. And within my energy levels, I was like, okay, I know that my energy levels, they varied pretty drastically. So a lot of times in the first trimester, I was pretty tired at the beginning of the day. I would have like a few hours where I'd feel like good in the middle of the day. And then towards the end of the day, I was just wiped out. So I just had to know that. And I had to plan out the back end of my business, the marketing side of things, the coaching side of things, so that I could like really like recalibrate. I would like try and get my desk as a standing desk at some points. My back has been pretty sore, so I've been going to the chiropractor to help me with that. But I also have been sitting on an exercise ball to kind of like help out some of my back issues, and I'm open to it. I'm feeling pretty good. But you're just gonna have to do what is best for you. So it's having a lot of options and being like, okay, if for me, I was like energetically, just speaking about my energy levels, they varied so much. And then in the second trimester, I did feel like a wave of like feeling more normalcy. And I actually recorded all the Five Figure Foundation's new curriculum during that time. And I kind of thought that would continue until the third trimester. And just know that like every single person is different, which is why I think having pivot plans and having multiple plans was really helpful for me. But then in the third trimester, I did feel tired again. I was like not expecting it. So I recorded all of Foundation's curriculum in literally, I think it was a day in like one 24-hour period. I just like knocked it out. And I kind of thought I could do the same for six figure scaling. And it took me, I think, 2.5 to 3 weeks to record curriculum. So it's just having a lot of patience with yourself and having a lot of options and giving yourself a lot of runway with your energy levels. Now, with your physical symptoms, that can vary really, really, really drastically. So you want to be able to be like, okay, like for me, the second I found out I was pregnant, I was like, if I have to have morning sickness every single day, I'm just going to need to move my morning clients to the evening. If I am unable to coach somebody, and this is where the transparency comes in too, for the back end of my business, I was like, okay, I was just going to be like, hey, I'm sick. Like, I need to move calls and be flexible. But I had to make sure that, like, mentally I was okay and was like, people aren't going to just quit working with me if I am sick. All humans get sick, regardless of whether or not they experience pregnancy. And that's even in the clause for my business. I would like literally say, like, I will let you know if there's an emergency, if there's something that comes up. I will try and let you know it 24 hours in advance and then reschedule our call. However, if there is an emergency, it might have to happen. And I will try and do that in limited capacity, you know? So that literally is in my contract for all my programs in one-on-one coaching. And I would highly recommend putting something like that in your clauses as well. And again, they recommend not telling people until you're in the second trimester, I think is like or like 9 weeks. There's something like whatever the standard is. But for me, I knew that I was susceptible to like having potentially pregnancies that didn't work out. So for me, I was like, I'm really going to be like mindful and not tell people before I hit that mark. Again, I forget what mark that actual time is. But for me, I was like, okay, I'm not going to tell people, but I did need to create safety with myself to be able to pivot physically and energetically within my business with my clients. I was like, I needed to make sure that, like, on the back end of side of things, that I was going to be okay with that. So I created lots of different plans for me physically. And I was like, okay, if I am feeling more energized in this stage, in this time, I first and foremost, it's safe to feel tired. It's safe to feel totally drained. I'm building a human, like that's part of this. And then it's safe to pivot my schedule and people. The other thing was within my back end, making sure that I was really like with my marketing and things like that, I had to instantly go to a situation where I was like, there might be a time, same with like batching out stuff for my maternity leave. I was like, there might be a time where I go into labor soon, where sooner than expected, where I might not be able to record. I've recorded a weekly podcast. I've gotten a podcast out every single week for the Solopreneur Academy. I even when like I've never missed a week of posting within my business since like 2021. And of course that consistency has led to my success. But I knew that if I'm pregnant, that I might not be feeling like I'm as energized as typical. So I immediately was like, I can do reruns. And for my maternity leave, I already have backups for every single one of these podcast episodes to do reruns. For you, for content, I want you to be okay with repurposing content that's a top performer. We can test it again, try it out, see if maybe if you had top performers where you talked about something that happened during the winter holidays, maybe we test it out for the summer holidays. But I want you to be okay with working smarter, not harder, even copying and pasting old posts. For me, I was like, I'm okay with that. I'm literally okay if we just change the date, say, change some of the words. With AI, it's easier than ever, but I want you to have that safety to repurpose content, to be able to work smarter, not harder. And if you get posts out that are a little bit late, if you're used to posting Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and you get posts out on a Tuesday, you need to be okay with pivoting. And it's safe to be I would say our goal is consistency, but if you get stuff out on like a semi, not as regular basis, it's okay. It's also okay for you for the back end of your business, especially when it comes to marketing. For me personally, there were parts of me. For me, the two things that you want to be doing consistently within your business is front end one-to-many marketing by posting on social media or email or a podcast or some sort of thing to go out consistently. And the other thing is talking to people in the DMs one-on-one. So it's like you've got one-to-many front-facing billboard marketing that just builds brand awareness and talks about your business. And then you've got one-to-one conversations to build relationships with people. And for me, within my business, I had really had some like serious intentions where I was like, once we're through the craziness of making the two programs and through the wedding season, I knew that I had dropped off messaging as many people as I wanted to. It was inconsistent and infrequent just because of life happening. And I knew that I wanted to get back into that right after the wedding. And I am pregnant. So it was like one of those things where I had to be okay with imperfections within my business. I would love to be the kind and I was talking with one of my clients because it feels so good when your business is nice and organized. And I was there in 2024. I had a system, I had a nice little routine, talking to people 30 minutes in the morning, responding 30 minutes in the evening. And that fell by the wayside in 2025, and I thought I could pick it up and wasn't physically able to. So for the marketing, being okay with reusing stuff, being okay with repurposing stuff, getting something out there is better than nothing. And if you get nothing out there, having grace for yourself, that's okay too. And but like knowing that like you're like, okay, yes, I'm giving myself grace. I would like to be better. And still attempting to get some sort of consistency out there one to many is helpful. For me, within my messaging people, I really was like, it's what I can physically do, especially in that first trimester and now even in the third trimester. It was all I could do to get my posts out and coach my people, especially in the first trimester. So for me, I was like, I just needed to let go of one-on-one messaging. I do have an amazing VA team right now that works for me. And I was like, I tried to make adaptations to my process where I would tell them to message people on my behalf. I created videos that they could send out and like give full disclosures. But actually, what I talked about in episode 116 is I got some negative feedback about sending mass messages, like spamming people. It was not my intent, but at the same time, it was the best I could do. And I would rather send a spam copy paste message to people than not send anything at all. And I was like, I'm okay with that. And if people want to be upset about that, that's okay. Like I am doing the best I can. Giving yourself a lot of grace and a lot of patience, I think is really, really important. The other thing is with emotional instability, knowing and expecting that is okay. I found that doubling down on self-coaching was a very important thing for me. I talk about teaching, I think I teach self-coaching in episode 117. Um, it's 118, 117, I think. But within that, one of the two, when I found out I was pregnant, I really needed to like manage my emotions. and they actually had me, I have ADHD, full disclosure. Again, this is an oversharing episode, but they had me go off my ADHD medication. Turns out people with ADHD store cortisol instead of secrete cortisol like normal human beings. So that's part of having ADHD, it's part of it. So for me, I started storing cortisol like crazy. There was a study that was done that said that like 1% of people who took my medication, turns out it was a giant study, but they could have heart defects. So I've been trying to like not take medication as frequently as possible. And when I went off the medication, I had like a huge depression dip. It was not good. I was in a very dark place. And it turns out the medication had to do with like all amphetamines, not just like my regulated, created, like in a lab medication methylphenidate that I was taking. It was all amphetamines, including street meth. So I was able to go back on my medication, and her heart is so far like it's looking fantastic and we're good. But just know that that could be a part of it. And if you're experiencing things like that, it's okay and it's safe for you to feel negative emotion. There were parts of me that was like, I'm never going to feel happy again. And it was like, we were able to work through it. And so it's having a lot of kindness and grace and patience with yourself with the back end of your business. The advice for the back mentally for you to get on board, I gave you a lot of tools here. Back end of your business, the two things that you really need to do on a weekly basis are market and talk to people. And if that one of those things has to go, being okay with that, being okay with D minus work, especially for a lot of us, we succeeded because we were perfectionists and we have like an unattainable standard. Something is better than nothing. Being able to get out a few messages here and there might be all you can physically do. And that's what I've been able to do. And again, just having grace and patience with yourself is very, very important. The last piece of this is the front end of your business. So this includes, for me, when I say front end of my business, it's not just the front end marketing, but this means client facing marketing or client facing delivery is more so what I mean by front end. Back end is more so like you doing delivery just to keep up a presence for your business. But the last piece of it is the back end within client delivery. So for me, I am in a situation where my business does have a team. I shared with my team immediately the second I found out I was pregnant. And I was like, hey, we've got to create a plan. The second I also found out I was pregnant, I talked to all my coaches and planned out my maternity leave. Like that was the first thing that I did when I found out I was pregnant. I was like, we got to talk through this. And again, in episode 109, double checking again. I know I said at the beginning, but 109 goes through all of maternity leave, how to plan for pre-maternity leave, during maternity leave, and what you're going to do to phase your business after maternity leave as well. But for me, that was really helpful to talk about, okay, this is how we're going to um like I just wanted to communicate with my team, like, hey, we got a plan. We're gonna go for maternity leave, but also asking for like extra support. I actually know some of my clients who I've helped pivot when they're pregnant. Some of them have even brought on VAs when they find out they're pregnant. So that's something that you could do as well. You can find people. I've heard of people. I currently pay my VA. She lives in the Philippines and she's amazing. And she has a team of people that support me. And for, I wanted to pay an equitable wage, but for me, that felt very like, I think the average salary is around, I think $3 an hour. I've heard of people paying around $6 an hour. I actually pay her 10. So for me, I wanted to make that felt good for me. That felt like it was a really good exchange for me and my business. And it felt like it was an over deliver for her. And it also was able to keep profit margin down for me so I could actually like afford to bring her on and so help her to support her family with her VA business. Virtual assistant is what VA stands for, by the way, if you didn't know that. But you could also bring on support for your maternity leave, pregnancy, and you that's totally possible for you too. Again, it helps a lot to have really solid systems to be able to delineate and teach people standard operating procedures, SOPs. That's one of the things that I think is very helpful for having the systems that I teach that people have told me about before as well. But you want to be able to communicate if there's anyone that works for you, communicate as soon as possible. And then it's totally up to your discretion when and if you do want to share about things with your clients. But for me, the second that I hit that like threshold of you like the pregnancy is seeming viable, I told my clients immediately and then I announced it publicly. For me personally, for the front end for client delivery, I wanted to let them know first and foremost, I made a plan and I was like, everyone's just going to get an extension of their package. Everyone's going to get 3 extra months of guest coaching. I'm going to have guest coaches. You're going to have access to the portal and the modules. I'm going to close down the discussion stream and one-on-one feedback for the mastermind. But I made that plan. I felt really sold myself that that was a really good plan. And I do think it's like a phenomenal plan. I'm like, this is awesome. You just get like 15 months with me instead of 12. Great news. And then what we did is we went through and we talked about within their packages, I communicated with my current clients first. And then after I told my clients, I think I gave them like a week to adjust, ask me any questions. By getting their questions, I was able to answer more public questions as well. And then I announced it publicly. And I think that for me, again, pivoting and transparency is the name of this podcast episode, because I find that the more transparent I am, the more people feel safe to buy and safe to like for me to sell. It creates safety for them to buy the more that I share. So for me, again, this is a lot of oversharing about like my personal medical health, but within me sharing about like, here's why I made these changes. Here's why I wanted to make this an over deliver. If you have any questions, please talk to me. But that transparency, I feel like created so much trust, which is why I've actually signed and am working with more clients than any other year than this year. Fun fact, it's like kind of cool. So it's like I actually have the most clients I've ever had. I'm working with over 55 people right now. And I think that's due to the transparency that I had within my business. And again, I'm going to be working with hundreds of people as time goes on. But I think that I was just very clear, very transparent. And that's what helped me to bring in all these awesome humans. So for you all, if you are pregnant, first and foremost, get yourself on board. Second off, set up the back end. Third off, communicate in the front end, and you have got this. If you have any questions or if you've got any questions about the worksheet that goes along with this in the show notes, please let me know. Otherwise, I'll be seeing you in the next episode of the Mom Series coming up for you soon.
Did you know that 89% of people need to see a testimonial in order to buy? Get my free testimonial template using the link in the show notes, and you'll see exactly how I used testimonials to market my business as it grew to 120K in my first year full-time and multiple 6 figures every year after that. Thank you so much again for listening, and I can't wait to see you on the next episode of the Solopreneur Academy Podcast.